Hello students, yeah, the next session in this particular chapter deals with time and place for performance of a promise. When should this particular contract be performed? Right now we have completed in the previous session as to who should perform it, how should the contract be performed, like when are both parties known to discharge, I mean to say known to have performed the contract. We have discussed about it. Now we'll talk about another important concept with regard to time and place for performance of a contract. Let's say the time had not been specified in the agreement. So, how are we supposed to perform? As I told you, the promiser should initiate the contract. So, now what the promiser should do? He should put forth an application and then ask the promisee, sir, when should I deliver the goods? So, in this situation, in case of time has not been specified, okay, usually the law requires the promiser not to make, it's not necessary, it's not that not to make, but it is not necessary for a specific application again to be made by the promiser. He can deliver it in reasonable time. As to what is reasonable time is not mentioned. A had promised to deliver 50 tons of oil to B. So here again A, it's not necessary. Mind you, I have used the word it's not necessary. If A wants, he can definitely ask. As per law, within reasonable time, without asking B, A can definitely deliver those 50 tons of oil. No application need to be made by A. Like in case the time and place for performance had been specified in the contract. Here time and place means I am talking about one particular day. A day had been mentioned, certain particular day. In such case also, Mr. A need not go to Mr. B and specifically ask. If he wants, he can ask. But he need not specifically ask as to when the contract needs to be performed. A specific application, no application needs to be made, and the promiser definitely can perform, and this should be performed only during the business hours. BIZ here means business hours. Like for example, A, the same example only, A had promised to deliver 50 tons of oil to B. Okay, fine. So now Mr. B or Mr. A has to go to Mr. B's office and deliver these 50 tons of oil. So when should A go to B's office? When a certain day had been mentioned in the contract. He should not go around 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the night. He should go during the ordinary business hours, that is anywhere between 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and deliver the oil and then get his consideration. That's what it tells you. In case of a certain day, time and place for performance had been specified, then the promiser need not again ask that time. He can definitely go and perform his obligation during the business hours. The next one is promisor has not undertaken without application by promising. What do you mean by this? In contract itself, they have clearly mentioned, the promisor had said, see, the promisee has to convey to me as to when the goods have to be delivered to him. Then only I'll deliver. That is simple, right? Like in this particular case, in case if A has specifically at the time of entering into a contract, he had mentioned, I'm ready to offer 50 tons of oil to A. B. A is ready to offer 50 tons of oil to B, but B should first specify at what time and what place these oil cans have to be delivered. In such situation, B should first make an application to A. B should first initiate the proceedings. In case if B doesn't do so, then it is considered that B is at fault. Then comes the part with regard to without application by promisee. In case both A and B have not mentioned as to which place and which time the goods have to be delivered, then who should initiate? The promisor. It is completely the duty of the promisor to initiate the application. Mane asking the promisee, Mr. B, when do you want these goods to be delivered? The last one is whatever, in case if details have been clearly mentioned in the contract saying that, see, if A says, I'm going to deliver 50 tons of oil to Mr. B or as on 5th June on at let's say 11 a.m. in the morning, then in that situation the contract has to be accordingly discharged as mentioned in the agreement. Even though these provisions explain as to how a contract has to be performed in case of absence of time and place in an agreement to an contract. That's what is with regard to time and place for performance of an contract. Now let us talk about another important topic which talks about reciprocal promises. What do you mean by these reciprocal promises? See, usually most of the agreements are reciprocal promises themselves. Example, A promises to deliver 500 bales of cotton to B. So, once A delivers the cotton, B is supposed to pay money, say 50 lakh rupees. So, what is that called? A reciprocal promise. Only after A delivers cotton, B will be in a position to pay 50,000 rupees. So, here the first point says, in case of such kind of reciprocal promises, the promiser need not perform his duty if he is if he knows that the other party is not ready to do his obligation. What do you mean by that? A has to deliver 500 bales of cotton. Now, Mr. A knows that Mr. B is not in a good financial position. He is not ready, and even though if he is ready, he is not in a position, and moreover, he is not willing to repay the amount back to A. In such situation, A's obligation in the contract need not be performed. See, in case of a reciprocal promise, if A is confident enough that B is not ready to perform his obligation of repayment after receipt of those goods, then definitely A is not bound to perform his obligation. This is the first part, promiser not bound to perform unless reciprocal promise is ready and willing to perform. I want you to mark these examples with regard to reciprocal promise, analysis of section 51, A and B, and then please go through this particular aspect. Simultaneous performance of reciprocal promises. Please underline from this point where A promises to deliver rice to Mr. B, rice, and B promises to pay the price on delivery. Both the promises are to be performed simultaneously, and both A and B must be ready and willing to perform their respective promises. Such promises constitute concurrent money continuous conditions, and the performance of one promise is conditional on the performance of the other. If the one of the promises is not performed, the other also need not be performed. If in the above example, A is unwilling to deliver the rice on payment, A will be guilty of breach of the promise, and the breach would relieve B the obligation to perform. As simple as that. A is not performing his part, B need not perform this particular part. Then order of performance. Usually in reciprocal promises, who should perform first? Is it the promiser or the promisee? In this case, it usually depends on the agreement or the contract. Based on the rules of the contract, the order of performance is based. In case of those, usually as we have discussed, the promiser usually initiates the performance because he is the one who had given an offer, right? So usually, but in case, even though he has initiated the offer, if in an agreement he wants promisee to perform first, then the promisee can perform first. In case if it is not mentioned in the contract, then it is in accordance with order of law, like we have Sale of Goods Act. When is it considered as a sale? When all the risks and rewards are transferred to the buyer. So when do you consider the risks and rewards are transferred? When the object is given to the buyer. So in such cases, when do you assume a contract had been performed? As per the details given in the law of land. Let's say it is considered as a sale when A delivers goods to B. As per the law of land, then A has to first deliver goods to B and then only B has to make a payment. In case if it is not written anything in the contract. This is with regard to order of performance. You can definitely see the examples given in your study material page number 69. Then 1.69. Then comes the part with regard to liability of a party preventing event on which the contract is to take effect. For this, I want you to read this example and mark it. Because there are certain parties, let's say A and B have entered into a contract, but A is, or let's say B is preventing A to perform his duty or perform his obligation in a contract. In such situation, definitely A can cancel the, not rather than cancel, I can say the contract is voidable at the option of law. Just like we have discussed about voidable option and coercion and undue influence. Similarly, A can make the contract void. Why? Because B is not allowing him to perform his obligation. And definitely A can claim damages from B. I want you to read this example. A and B contract that B shall execute some work for A for 1,000 rupees. B is ready and willing to execute the work accordingly. But A prevents him from doing so. The contract is voidable at the option of B. Then so this is the same example which I have set, and there's another example. Please go for example 2 as well. In a contract for sale of standing timber, the seller is to cut and cord it. That is clearly cord means you can say processing of timber, whereupon buyer is to take away and pay for it. The seller cords only a part of the timber and neglects to cord the rest. In that event, buyer may avoid the contract and claim compensation. That is, in case party itself is preventing an event on which contract is to take effect, then definitely the other party can cancel the contract. Then comes effect of default as to promise which should be first performed in contract consisting of reciprocal promises. Don't get confused, it's the same simple thing. You are not performing, I shall also not perform. I'll take an example. A had promised to deliver goods to B on Sunday. A had not delivered goods on Sunday. Definitely B need not pay the price. It's as simple as that. Default bills on its own. On its own, by default. They need not again go claim damages and all. We can definitely cancel this payment and say I'm not going to pay because A had not delivered the goods as promised. So this is effect of default, page number 1.70. Effect of default as to promise which should be first performed in contract consisting of reciprocal promises. Please underline this particular line. When a contract consists of reciprocal promises such that one of them cannot be performed or that its performance cannot be claimed till the other has been performed and the promiser of the promisee last mentioned fails to perform it, such promiser cannot claim the performance of reciprocal promise. One person had not performed, the other person need not perform it. You can read the example. A hires B ship from Kolkata to Mauritius, and so that A wants his cargo to be taken in B ship. But here what happens is A is not providing the cargo to B ship. B can automatically cancel the contract. That is with regard to effect of default. Then comes effect of failure to perform contract in which time is essential. Let's say a hospital had come into a contract with a pharmaceutical company asking them to provide drugs as on so and so date, as on so and so time for requirement of certain patients. Let's say the pharmaceutical company had not delivered in time. The hospital is at liberty to cancel the contract. Why? Because the very element of time which is essential for performance of the contract had not been adhered to, or they have not performed in accordance with that particular time. In such situation, what happens? Definitely hospital can render the contract void. That is, the contract becomes voidable and damages can be claimed from the pharmaceutical company by the hospital. Then comes agreement to do an impossible act. Definitely, right from the beginning, it is void. But here, agreement to do impossible acts, I have certain case studies as per section 56. Agreement to do impossible acts. This one can be given into two parts: initial impossibility and definitely subsequent impossibility. Okay. Yeah, before going to this aspect, let me have a small point over here. In case if time is essential, as I've given you hospital and pharmaceutical company. Let's say the hospital feels that the drugs can be used later also. And the hospital now, even though they were not delivered in time, they have accepted the drugs. In such situation, hospital will lose its right to sue the party because it has accepted the drugs. Even though if time is not essential, but in case if the hospital accepts the performance, the delayed performance, then the hospital cannot sue the pharmaceutical company. This is a small point which is given in page number 1.71. Contract that cannot be avoided where time is not essential and effect of acceptance of performance out of time. You can just go through these paragraphs. Then definitely agreement to do impossible acts. Definitely, see, first of all we have learned that impossible acts, definitely it is void, it will not be recognized by law and it cannot be enforced in court of law. But in case of, they are also given in two parts, that is initial impossibility. Initial impossibility means, let's say A and B wants to get married as per Hindu Act. As per Hindu Act. But as per Hindu Act, only one wife is allowed. But B is already married and had not divorced the existing wife. And not divorced the existing wife. Then in this case, this comes under initial impossibility. Definitely because B, as per Hindu Act, B should divorce his spouse before getting married to A, which he had not done it. So in case of this reciprocal promise, it's an impossible way to get married without getting divorced. So it is called as initial impossibility. The contract is considered as void and their marriage will not be recognized in court of law. Let's say subsequent impossibility is something wherein A and B plan to get married, but B had gone mad subsequently. Both A and B are single, but B had gone mad subsequently. Now A cannot marry Mr. B. That is called as subsequent impossibility. In this case also, they will be considered as void because as we have learned in Contract Act, any agreements with unsound minded people are also not enforceable in court of law. This is with regard to initial impossibility as well as
subsequent impossibilities, and the case studies over here are given in page numbers 1.71 and 1.72.
The next one is there are certain legal and illegal aspects of a contract. Before explaining these points, I want you to go through the example. A and B agreed that A will sell a house to B for 5 lakhs and also that if B uses it as a gambling house, he will pay a further sum of 7,50,000. The first set of reciprocal promises, that is to sell the house and pay 5 lakh for it, constitutes a valid contract. But the other part, that is making a house a gambling house, is invalid. Why? Because it is illegal. So when an agreement is reached having both legal and illegal aspects, the legal aspects are only enforceable. The illegal aspects are not enforceable. That's what this particular point says. Legal and illegal aspects of a contract. And finally, alternative promise, wherein there is one branch of the same being illegal. What do you mean by that? Alternative promise. That is, alternative promise being illegal. What do you mean by that? Like A and B have entered into a contract. A and B, A says, I'll pay 1 lakh rupees to you. You give me rice, otherwise give me opium. Give opium. In such situation, rice is fine. This contract only will be enforceable. This particular contract with regard to opium will not be enforceable in court of law. So this is with regard to alternative promise being illegal, and these are the various sections with regard to performance of reciprocal promises. Then we'll talk about discharge of a contract, or I'll talk about obligations of a person. I wish there's another aspect before discharge of a contract, contracts which need not be performed. First, I'll talk about discharge of a contract, then we'll talk about contracts which not be performed with consent of both the parties. That one we'll take it at the end, because I think first you should know as to how the contract is to be considered as completely fulfilled. Then we'll talk about contracts which need not be performed with the consent of both the parties. Those are novation, rescission and alteration of a contract. But when can a contract be discharged? When do you say a contract have been discharged? Discharge of a contract. Definitely, when is it considered as discharge? The obligation created by a contract comes to an end. In such case, it is called as discharge of a contract. So how will it be discharged? Discharged by performance, discharged by mutual agreement, the next one is discharged by impossibility of performance, discharged by lapse of time, discharged by operation of law, discharged by breach. By breach means not performing a duty, not performing this obligation. promisee may waive the performance.
Effects of neglect of promisee, I can say it as attempted performance, which we have just learned. Last one is neglect of merger of rights. Leaseholder becomes the owner.
So, in what circumstances do you think a contract can be discharged? Discharge means performed. See, usually the contract is discharged when the obligations have been performed by both the parties. That is a simple thing. But are there any other aspects also? Yes. Even before performance, if mutually they agree upon, discharge by mutual agreement is something wherein both the parties agree upon non-performance of a contract or semi-performance of a contract, wherein they cancel the first contract and enter into a new contract, or cancel the first contract altogether, then we still call it as discharge by mutual agreement. Here both the parties have supposed to agree for this discharge. Then the next one is impossibility of performance, as we have just discussed in the concept of reciprocal promises. Definitely a contract is discharged by impossibility of performance. Like I have said, A wants to draw, like A and B have entered into a contract wherein A had agreed to draw the picture of B. Let's say A happens to be a very big painter. In such situation, let's say A is dead. In such situation also, the contract is impossible to perform. So then we say that the contract had been discharged. Then comes contract lapse of time. Like in case a certain reasonable time, if the obligations have not been performed within certain reasonable time, then also the contract had been discharged by lapse of time. Then operation of law. Let's say the contract deals with legal goods. Like if you remember a few years back, Maggi was banned. In case A and B come together in a contract for sale and purchase of Maggi, then it is very much legal and performance has to be done. Obligation has to be performed. But in case if suddenly the government comes and bans Maggi, then automatically both A and B are discharged from doing their duty. So obviously the contract is discharged. Then discharge by breach. Breach means not performing. If one party does not perform his obligation or he performs breach, then automatically the other party also need not perform the contract. This is with regard to discharge by breach. Then promisee himself, let's say A and B have entered into a contract. Now A and B have entered into a contract wherein A is supposed to pay 1 lakh rupees to B. But now after subsequently A pays only 50,000 to B. B, being a kind-hearted person, he says, okay fine A, I'll accept this 50,000 and now I'll consider it as a discharge. In that situation also we agree that a contract had been discharged. Then comes attempted performance, which we have just explained. Attempted performance is something wherein the offerer performs his side of promise, but this offeree or the promisee does not accept it. In that case also we say that the contract has been discharged and offerer definitely can claim compensation or whatsoever as per the rights, as per the contract from the offeree or promisee. Then comes merger of rights. What do you mean by merger of rights? Let's say A and B are two parties. A had taken lease from B. Now here both A and B are lessor and lessee. But subsequently A had purchased the property from B. Now A becomes landlord. He is no more a lessee. So in such situation also we say the contract of lessor and lessee have been discharged. This particular question individually, or they can ask you to mention few ways as to how a contract can be discharged. This is how a contract, the obligation in a contract with regard to offerer and offeree will be discharged, other than performance as well. Now we'll talk about the different kinds of cancellation of contract. Now I'll explain about that. The contracts which need not be performed. This is also important. The first one being novation. Here discharge means performing the contract, performing the obligation and closing the contract. Here there is no performance of the contract. There is no performance of the contract. Please note down contracts which need not be performed with consent of both the parties. So what are they? First one being novation. Novation means what? Cancellation of old contract. Old contract, here the sections are section 62 to section 67. Cancellation of old contract and substituting the same, substituting it with the new contract. Rescission, not the rescission. Rescission is cancellation. Cancellation by both parties. Both the parties need not perform it. Alteration. In case a contract is altered, original contract is cancelled and an altered contract will come into being. In these particular three cases, the contracts need not be performed with consent of both the parties. They are not considered as void or something. The contract will be discharged automatically. How? This is one of the important sections, novation. Novation means what? One contract, that is the old contract is cancelled and a new contract is executed in its place. Such aspect is called as novation. Then comes rescission. Rescission, meaning of the word rescission means cancellation. They cancel the old contract. Then what is the difference between rescission and novation? See here, in case of rescission, both the parties initially itself they decide to cancel it. In case of novation, after a particular amount of time, a contract is cancelled and a new contract is subsequently entered into. Then comes alteration. If an existing contract is altered, it is assumed that the old contract, the terms of old contract have been cancelled and the new terms of new contract are come into the terms of new contract come into force automatically. That is with regard to alteration. Please underline these aspects. You can copy whatever I have written on the board and please underline these examples as well. Example with regard to novation and what is the difference between novation and alteration. Okay, these 3 points. Then these 2 points with regard to promisee may waive or remit performance of promise is already covered in discharge of contract. So I am not covering it in this particular section. You can give it a reading like, okay, this is quite similar to what we have done in discharge of contract. That is, promisee may waive or remit performance of promise. That is, A had given A had paid 5 lakh rupees to B. B needs to repay the same amount to A. But B repays only 1 lakh rupees. Then A still can say, I have discharged the contract. That is, the promisee themselves can discharge the contract. The last one being restoration of benefit under a voidable contract. See, usually when one party cancels it, the other party, usually restoration, the other party, because on account of other party, either due to undue influence or coercion, had forced a party to enter into a contract. The aggrieved party, first and foremost, they can cancel it or it is voidable. The contract is voidable at the option of the aggrieved party, as well as the aggrieved party can claim damages from the other party. So this is with regard to restoration of benefit under voidable contract. That is, let us say, I'll take an example. Other than compensation, usually A had been forced to sell his property to B. Okay, B had paid 50,000 as advance to A. Now let us say A had proved in court of law that B had forced him to sell his property. Then what does the court say as per Contract Act? The court says that A need not return 50,000 what B had paid, and he need not sell his property also, and moreover A can claim further damages from B. That is restoration of benefits in case of voidable contracts. This is with regard to as to how contracts are discharged even without any performance. Okay. Now we'll talk about appropriation of debts, the last topic for this session. It's quite simple to understand. What is meant by appropriation of debts? Appropriation means appropriation of debts. As per Contract Act, A has taken on various dates like this ₹1 lakh, ₹2 lakhs, ₹3 lakhs from Mr. B. Mr. B. Now there are cases. Now A has paid ₹1 lakh to B. He had not specified which debt it belongs to. Let's say this belongs to debt 1, this is debt 2, and this is debt 3. Now A had paid on one day, he has come and paid 1 lakh rupees to Mr. B. He had not specified which debt it has to be appropriated. In that situation, Mr. B can appropriate this 1 lakh to any of these debts. Any of his debt. That is, B as a creditor can appropriate to any of his debts, or in case of his debt, in case if A specifies as to which debt it has to be appropriated, in case if A specifies as to which debt it it has to be appropriated, then B has to appropriate this amount only to that particular debt. Otherwise, in case if there is any order by court of law, in accordance with that order, Mr. B has to appropriate that particular debt. This can be asked as a simple question. It's just a basic common sense. You can read it from page number 1.74. Yeah, 1.73 and 1.72 and 1.73. So with this, I end this particular session with regard to performance of a contract. Please let me know if you have any doubts. Thank you.